श्रीशैलेशदयापात्रं धीभक्त्यादिगुणार्णवं यतीन्द्रप्रवणं वन्दे रम्यजामातरं मुनिम् लक्ष्मीनाथसमारम्भां नाथयामुनमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम् यो नित्यम् अच्युतपदाम्बुजयुग्मरुक्मव्यामोहतस्तदितराणि तृणाय मेने अस्मद्गुरोर्भगवतोऽस्य दयैकसिन्धोः रामानुजस्य चरणौ शरणं प्रपद्ये लोकाचार्याय गुरवे कृष्णपादस्य सूनवे संसारभोगिसन्दष्टजीवजीवातवे नमः।
Asmad Gurubhyo Namaha, Asmad Parama Gurubhyo Namaha, Asmad Sarva Gurubhyo Namaha. So we are now going to continue our discussion of Sri Vacana Bhusanam by Pila Lokacharya with the commentary of Manavala Mamuni. And we're going to start with Sutra number 84.
ஆழ்வார் திருவடிகளே சரணம், எம்பெருமானார் திருவடிகளே சரணம், பிள்ளை லோகாச்சாரியர் திருவடிகளே சரணம், ஜீயர் திருவடிகளே சரணம். ஸ்ரீவச்சன பூஷணம் 84th Sutram. Yesterday we started the Adhikaranishta Prakaranam and Pillai Lokacharya taught us a few beautiful concepts in the first few sutrams. Particularly, he gave us guidance on the mindset and practices one needs to have while taking Lord Sriman Narayana as the means, and the mindset and practices one should have while thinking about in regard to the goal, which is service at Lord Sriman Narayana's holy feet. He gave specific examples for the mindset that one needs to adopt for both Upaya and Upeya, and we saw a few yesterday. For Upaya, we saw 3: Mother Lakshmi, Draupadi, and Tirukkannamangayandan. And for Upeya, we saw Lakshmana yesterday. Today, we will see the 3 additional people that were referred to as examples while it comes to habits and practices that one should have while thinking about the goal. பெரிய உடையாரும் பிள்ளை திருநடையூர் அரையரும் உடம்பை உபேட்சித்தார்கள், சிந்தையந்திக்கு உடம்பு தன்னடையே போயித்து. For பெரிய உடையார், which is Jatayu, and an Acharya Pillai Tirunadayur Arayar, both of them, they renounced their physical body. For the Gopika known as Chintayanti, the body went by itself. That is, the life automatically left from the body. Let us see what it means. Periyudayar is Jatayu. We all know the history of Ramayana. In Panchavati, when Rama, Lakshmana and Sita were there, Jatayu happened to come to Rama. Rama accepted his services, and after that Jatayu lived a short distance away from the ashrama where Rama, Lakshmana and Sita were there. And we know that Ravana one day abducted Sita and he took her on the Pushpaka Vimana to Sri Lanka. On the way, Sita, of course, she was helpless. She was trying to get some help. And when the Pushpaka Vimana was flying, she noticed that Jatayu was sleeping on a tree. And she immediately calling out Jatayu and said that Ravana is abducting, please help. Jatayu saw that, immediately woke up as Jatayu heard the sound, and he flew next to Ravana. And at first he tried to give advice to Ravana, saying, Ravana, you should not do this, this is not right, this is not good for you, so you should immediately stop this abduction and return Sita. But Ravana was not convinced and he did not listen to Jatayu's advice. So Jatayu decided that he has to fight Ravana and try to rescue Sita. So at that time, Jatayu did not even mind that he might be in danger, he put his life in danger to fight Ravana. There was a huge fight. Jatayu, after all, was a very powerful bird. There was a long fight, and we know what happened. Ravana basically wounded Jatayu in such a bad way that Jatayu eventually died from the wounds inflicted by Ravana, and Jatayu could not save Sita. But here, Jatayu gave his body up, his physical body up, to do service to Rama, to try to save Sita. That is what is meant by Periya Udayar Udambai Upekshattar. Similarly, Pillai Tirunarayur Arayar is an Acharya, was an Acharya. He was living in the Srirangam area. One day, he along with his two sons went to a temple nearby. The place is called Tirunarayanapuram. This is not the Melkottai Tirunarayanapuram that is present in Karnataka today. When they were visiting the temple and worshipping Vedanarayana Perumal, at the exact time, people who were following a different method of worship, people who were following a different path, they attacked the temple and they set the temple to fire. Basically, they set fire to the temple. Everybody left the temple. But Pillai Tirunarayur Arayar, he did not leave the temple. He immediately saw that this fire would cause harm to the Vigraha, to the Tirumeni Vigraha of Vedanarayana Perumal, and he could not bear to see any harm come to that Perumal. So he decided to stay there, and he hugged, it is said that he hugged the Perumal so that fire won't come to Perumal, and Perumal will not be suffering from the heat coming from the fire. So he was trying to protect Perumal. His two sons, they said they will not go unless and until their father came, and they decided to stay there also. And all three of them, they tried to save Perumal from the fire, and they died. Their life left their body. Again, Pillai Tirunarayur Arayar here, he did not mind even giving up his body, because he could not bear to see any harm come to Vedanarayana Perumal, Lord Sriman Narayana, and he tried to protect him. So these are two examples where Jatayu and Pillai Tirunarayur Arayar, in the mood of service to Lord Sriman Narayana, they did not mind about their body going away, and they renounced their body. The third example is Chintayanti. Chintayanti, this story comes in Vishnu Purana, Sri Vishnu Purana. Chintayanti was a Gopika. In those days, Krishna used to do Rasa Krida, where he played the flute and he danced with the Gopikas in Vrindavana. Hearing the music of the flute, this Chintayanti, she wanted to go and join the dance and be with Krishna and other Gopikas, particularly be with Krishna. On the way that she went, her father-in-law came and he asked her not to go. So she could not go. But he was always thinking about Krishna even though she could not go. As that happened, as she was thinking about Krishna, she was feeling content. But since she was not able to be near Krishna, she could not bear that separation. And the Vishnu Purana says that because she was having both happiness and sorrow together, the sorrow because she could not be with Krishna, that separation was causing her that sorrow, her punya and papa all went away and her life left the body, and then she attained moksha, is what it is said. So Chintayanti, without this Gopika, name is Chintayanti. That is what is given in Vishnu Purana. It is referred, it's a common noun. It is not a proper noun. She did not have any thought process that said it's okay if my body goes away or anything like that. Because of her inability to bear separation from Krishna, life automatically left the body. Udambu thannadiye poyitru. That is what these three examples tell us, that in the mode of service to Lord Sriman Narayana, these two people did not care about their body, and for the third person, automatically life left and separated from the body. That is the inspiration in terms of how much love one should have for Lord Sriman Narayana. In the next sutra, the 85th sutra, Pulelokacharya gives us even more foundation about this by summarizing what he talked about in the past few sutras. உபாயத்துக்கு சக்தியும் லஜ்ஜையும் யத்னமும் குலைய வேணும். உபேயத்துக்கு பிரேமமும் தன்னை பேணாமையும் தரியாமையும் வேணும். For adopting Lord Sriman Narayana as the means, three things have to be destroyed. Shakti, lajja, which is shame, and yatnam, which is self-effort. We saw that Sita, she had the power to destroy Ravana, but she did not destroy Ravana, and she waited for Rama to come and destroy Ravana. Here that is revised. Basically, Pulelokacharya is saying to adopt Lord Sriman Narayana as the means, the Shakti that we have, we should not use. That Shakti should go away. Lajja is shame. Draupadi, we saw the example where she gave up both her hands. She lifted her hands and then said, "Oh Govinda, save me," and then Krishna saved her. The contextualization here is when one is giving away or renouncing anything that is danger or that is enemy to us adopting Lord Sriman Narayana, other people may laugh at us, they may insult us, they may try to shame us. That shame has to go away. That is the concept. And yatnam, of course, is one's own effort, and we saw that through the example of Thirukkandamangai Aandan. உபேயத்துக்கு பிரேமமும் தன்னை பேணாமையும் தரியாமையும் வேணும். With regards to the service at Lord Sriman Narayana's feet, three things are needed. Premam, tannai penamai, not worrying about oneself, and dhariyamai, inability to bear any separation from Lord Sriman Narayana. Premam is love and affection. Example is Lakshmana, we saw yesterday. Tannai penamai, not worrying about oneself, we saw Pillai Thirunarayur Arayar and Jatayu. And dhariyamai, inability to bear separation, that we saw in Chintayanti. Now the next sutra is a beautiful sutra that answers a potential doubt. In several Vedic literature, it is said that giving up one's body while thinking about Vishnu will give us moksha. It is there in Agneya Purana, it is there in Vayavya, it is there in Vamaniya, and it is there in Mahabharata also. I won't go into details, but these slokas are quoted by Manavala Mamuni, so it is there. Then the question arises. The Vedic literature tells that if we give up our body while thinking about Lord Sriman Narayana, moksha will be there. So it is a means, that is an independent means that is being given. We saw that Pillai Thirunarayur Arayar and Jatayu gave away their body. So, aren't they adopting a means which is different than Lord Sriman Narayana? Because earlier on in the Upaya Vaibhava, we saw that one should not adopt any means other than Lord Sriman Narayana. So, did they do something that one should not do is the question. And this sutra answers that. இவனுக்கு வைதமாய் வருமதிரே தியஜிக்கலாவது ராகப்பிராப்தமாய் வருமது தியஜிக்க ஒண்ணாதிரே. So for the Prapanna, the ones that come, the actions that one could possibly take, because it is an injunction in the Vedic literature, that is the one that one should give away. Ragapraptamai varuvadu, the one that is coming because of the affection that one has and the mindset that one develops towards Lord Sriman Narayana, the infinite affection and the desire, Raga Praptam, the actions that come as a consequence of that mindset is something that cannot be given up. Here we saw that either Pillai Thirunarayur Arayar or Jatayu, they did not give up their body because they were adopting a means to attain moksha. They, in their infinite concern for Lord Sriman Narayana and for Lord Sriman Narayana's consort, Sita in the case of Jatayu, In the case of Pillai Tirunelveliar, for Lord Sriman Narayana himself as the Vedanarayana Perumal, in their infinite affection and in that mindset, the action that they took automatically came, and it is impossible to stop that action. Even if they want to give away that action, they cannot, because it is a natural consequence of the state of having that desire and affection for Lord Sriman Narayana. So, given that they did not adopt this as a means for moksha, they did not go against the concepts that were taught earlier. That is what is said here. Then the question comes, how is this? You are saying that one should give away things that are given as injunctions in the Vedic literature, and one that comes as a consequence of one's mindset of extreme affection to Lord Sriman Narayana is something that one cannot give up. What is the reason for that is asked. For that, the next sutra gives us the answer. Upayatva anusandhanam nivartakam, upayatva anusandhanam pravartakam. It says the anusandhanam, the thinking that we are adopting a means, will immediately make us stop that. And thinking about Lord Sriman Narayana will prompt us to do more things. That is what it means. So, for instance, if somebody is trying to adopt the method of giving away one's body in order to attain moksha while thinking of Lord Sriman Narayana, the moment they think that it is a upayam, that it is a means, automatically their mind will stop them from doing that work. The raga praptam effect, the consequence of the mindset that one has for the infinite desire for Lord Sriman Narayana and the concern for Lord Sriman Narayana, when one thinks that some harm might come to Lord Sriman Narayana, that mindset will prompt this person to do whatever it takes, to adopt whatever means is necessary to try to avoid that harm coming to Lord Sriman Narayana. Because of that, it will enable one to do more things. Because they are thinking that, it is better to give up this body rather than see harm come to Lord Sriman Narayana while we are there. Hence, that will cause them to do that. That is what is told in this sutra. We will stop here today and we will continue tomorrow. Are
there any questions about those sutras? Those the very interesting sutras.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that it's so clear the way he explains everything. He's a very learned Vaishnava, huh? Very realized. I really enjoy listening. Very nice.
Okay, so this whole section,
yes,
this whole section basically is starting from Sutra 81. And in Sutra 81, basically what Pilalokacharya is saying, we should follow the examples of these different people, and such as Sita, Draupadi, Tirukana Mangai Andan, Lakshmana, Jatayu, and this other Acharya Pillai, Tirunayur Arya, with his two sons who died trying to protect the deity from fire. And then the Gopika Chintayanti, she's known as Chintayanti. He said this is a common word, not a proper noun. So in other words, we can call her Chintayanti, but the word Chinta means to think. And if we add the terminology, if we add yad, to cause to think. So she passed away because she was thinking of Krishna. She was thinking of Krishna and she was satisfied. She couldn't actually go be with Krishna. So she was satisfied just thinking of Krishna, and she went to Krishna by leaving her body. And this is mentioned in Vishnu Purana. So that in Sutra 81, this whole section starts by saying we should be like these different people. And then, of course, some explanation about each one of these personalities and their story came. And then after that, then there were some questions about whether this means that the Prapana is doing some effort, whether he's making some effort to attain moksha or not, and he's not actually making any effort. He's adopting the Lord as the means, and not property or even any other thing, giving up the body as being an effort to reach moksha. So, and then the question will come, oh, isn't this against the Shastric regulations? Because the Shastras are full of rules and commandments. Do this, do that. Don't do this, don't do that. So shouldn't we do those things? But the answer is, and the example is giving up the body as a means of attaining moksha, like that. So I'm reminded also of a story about Periyanambi. Periyanambi was Mahapurna was Ramanuja's guru, who gave him Samashranam or Diksha, Vaisnava Diksha, Pancha Samskara. And Periyanambi was, along with Kurudalwan and Periyanambi's daughter, they were all dragged before the king of in Tanjore. In those days, the king was living in Tanjore. And there was a king living in Tanjore called Krimikanta Chola, who was a Shaivite, a Veera Shaiva. He was a very staunch Shaivite, and he wanted to stop Ramanuja preaching Vaishnavism, so he sent his men to get Ramanuja. And Ramanuja swapped clothes with his disciple Kurudalwan, who was a Grihasta, and was able to escape to Tirunarayanapuram in Melkote, which is in Karnataka, for about 15 years. He was in exile there until after that king died. But what the king did was, the king sent his men to go and capture Ramanuja and bring him there, because he wanted to bring Ramanuja to Tanjore and have Ramanuja sign a piece of paper saying Shiva is greater than Vishnu, or Shiva is supreme and Vishnu is not supreme. So he wanted him to actually sign something saying Shiva is the greatest, right? In Sanskrit, Shiva something. But anyway, so Kurudalwan was dressed as Ramanuja. So he and Periyanambi, Ramanuja's guru, and Periyanambi's daughter, they were all brought by the Ramanuja escaped, and they were all brought to the court of the king in Tanjore. So the king actually tortured all of them, and Periyanambi was old. He was an old man, so he died later of the torture. So on the way back to Sri Rangam, he was dying, and on the way back to Sri Rangam, his daughter said to him, Kurudalwan, and of course they weren't able to, Kurudalwan signed this piece of paper saying Shiva is the greatest, but underneath it, he made a pun and he said, but a Drona is greater than a Shiva, right? Because there's another meaning to the word Shiva as a type of weight. So we can say Shiva means a kilo, and Drona means a ton. So he wrote a kilo is greatest, but a ton is greater than a kilo. So he wrote this, and it was understood that he was making a joke out of what the king was trying to do. So the king had both of their eyes burned out or removed, and so they both were blinded. And so the girl, who was the daughter, led them back to Sri Rangam. But Periyanambi, being old, couldn't bear the pain of this torture, and he was dying. So both Kuresha and the daughter of Periyanambi, they said to Periyanambi, Nambi, please wait until we reach Sri Rangam. Sri Rangam is a holy place of the Lord's. The Lord appeared there, and it's a very holy place. If you die in Sri Rangam, it's called Bhuloka Vaikuntham, or heaven on earth. You'll go to Vaikuntha just by dying in that place. So we hear this in the scriptures all the time. But if you just die in Mathura, you die in Vrindavan, you die in Ayodhya, some holy place, then you'll immediately go to Vaikuntha just by dying in that place. Yeah. So they were telling them, no, you should wait, just wait, hang on, just try to hang on. We know you're dying, and we know you're going to die, but we're going to bring you to Sri Rangam. Once you get to Sri Rangam, you can die. So he said to them, I don't want people to think that you have to die in a holy place to achieve liberation, to achieve moksha. So he said, therefore, I'm going to die here itself in a place which isn't holy, which isn't especially holy. And I'm going to, of course, he attained moksha because he was a prapana. He had surrendered to the Lord, but he didn't want to show the example to people that, oh, look, even this person, he tried to get back to Sri Rangam so that he could attain liberation by dying in Sri Rangam. So he said, no, because he's going to attain liberation only by adopting the Lord as the means for liberation, and not by thinking I need to go to Sri Rangam, or I need to do I need to follow this particular rule of the scripture, or I need to not disobey this rule of the scripture. There may be some things that the prapana does or doesn't do, which go against, according to other people, go against the meaning of the scriptures. But the ultimate meaning of the scriptures is to surrender to the Lord, and therefore it supersedes all those other things. So this is a very important meaning here, which many other Vaishnavas will not accept this. Okay, this is a very distinct doctrine of the Tengalai Sri Vaishnavas, the Southern School of Sri Vaishnavism. So we can continue on with, unless there's any other questions or comments, with Sutra number 88.
Yeah, I just have a very simple question.
Sure.
He is always saying Shriman Narayana, and
Right.
but what is the meaning of Shriman?
Okay, so Tiru, the word Tiru in Tamil, or the word Shri in Sanskrit, refers to the goddess.
Lakshmi, yeah?
Refers to Lakshmi. It also means auspicious. It also means opulent, like that. So when we say Shriman Narayana, particularly Sri Vaishnavas, you'll hear a lot of people talk about Vishnu this, Vishnu that, or Narayana this or Narayana that. But Sri Vaishnavas will say Sri Vishnu or Shriman Narayana. We'll always add the word Shri. And also, when we talk about many things in Sri Vaishnavism, we'll talk about Tiru this, Tiru that, or Shri this, or Shri that. We always add the word Shri because we always consider that Lakshmi is with the Lord. And it's important for us because Lakshmi is the founder of this sampradaya, right? The first acharya, of course, is Sriman Narayana himself. Narayana is the first acharya. As Narayan Rishi, he taught the Tuda mantra in Badrika Ashram. But not only is Sriman Narayana the acharya, but the next person, the first person that he taught everything to was Goddess Lakshmi. So she's very important. So she's always mentioned because she's the first acharya, and also because she's the Purushakara, which we started. Sri Vacana Bhusanam was talking about the Purushakara. Why is the Ramayana more important than the Mahabharata? Right? Because it talks about the prisoner. The prisoner is Sita Devi. Sita Devi is Lakshmi Devi. So she is the mediatrix, or the Purushakara, she is the mediator between God and the souls, right? So she's always important, and she's always there with Lord Narayana. And we can explain about how she is always with Lord Narayana. Lord Narayana is all-pervading. He pervades everything. The word Vishnu means all-pervasive from the inside. Vasudeva means all-pervasive from the outside. And the word Narayana means pervasive from inside and outside. Okay? So all these three names, which are called Vyapaka names, the word Vyapaka means pervasive, all pervasive. These are the main names of God, because the main aspect that distinguishes God from any other sentient beings is he is all pervasive. There's no other sentient being that's all pervasive. Right? Now, then the question comes, well, what about you say that Lakshmi is always with Lord Narayana? How can you say that when you say only God is all pervasive? Is Lakshmi another God, or is she not another God? Right? So then that question is answered differently by the Northern School and the Southern School, the Wadagalais and the Tengalais. The Wadagalais consider her to be like another God, like that. They say that she can create, She can also give moksha. She doesn't do those things out of deference to her husband, Sriman Narayana, but she has the power to do those things. That is what the northern school says. The southern school says, no, she's not another god, because we can't have two gods, because we always say that God is the greatest, and God cannot be equal to or great. Nobody can be equal to or greater than God. So in other words, like the northern school more or less sees Lakshmi Narayana as a combination, as a couple. So their idea of the supreme is the supreme couple. The supreme couple. That's who they worship, the supreme couple. The southern school, we also worship Lakshmi, right? Lakshmi is the divine consort of the Supreme Lord, and she's very, very important for those two reasons that I mentioned, that she starts a sampradaya, and she's also the mediator between the two, the souls and Lord Narayana. So, whereas the northern school says that she is part of the Ishvara Koti, she is in the category of the Tattva of Ishvara, so she is God, is what they say, right? Whereas the southern school says that she is part of the Jiva Koti, she is part of the sentient beings that are servants of God, that are not the master, but are the servants, because she's also a servant of God, because she's the divine consort of the Lord, like that. And that therefore she is not able to give moksha herself personally or to create universes, right? But she is the mediator between, and therefore, because she's the mediator, she has to be between the Lord and the souls. If she were the Lord, if she were able to give moksha, then there'd be no need to approach the Lord. We could just approach Lakshmi, and we could just Lakshmi could be the means, and we could pray to her, and we can just forget about Narayana, right? Because she can give the moksha. Okay, so this is what the southern school says. So the southern school says that therefore she is part of the Jiva Koti, and she's therefore not like God. She is much, much greater than any other Jiva, but she is still in the category of Jiva Koti. So the question by the northern school will then be, okay, but then in the Shastras like Vishnu Purana, it mentions that Lakshmi, and even the Pancharatras like Lakshmi Tantra, says that Lakshmi is pervading. She's also all pervading like God. She's with the Lord everywhere. She's with the Lord everywhere. Now we can also say, wherever Lord Narayana goes, also his devotees were also with him. So they're also everywhere. So how can we say that God is the only person who's all pervading when Lakshmi and maybe even his devotees were also with him everywhere? So this comes back to the idea of the understanding of what moksha means. Moksha means that when we attain moksha, then we attain all knowledge. We have all knowledge and we have all bliss, right? There's nothing stopping us from being fully blissful and fully knowledgeable. So when we're fully knowledgeable, we're conscious of everything that happens everywhere and any time and any place and any circumstance. So because we are fully knowledgeable, then by that guna, by that quality of being fully knowledgeable, we can be in every place at the same time. We can be also all pervasive in moksha, right? So what the southern school says, what the Tenkalai Sri Vaishnavas say, is that Lakshmi is not all pervasive. She is not vyapaka or vyapti. She doesn't have swarupa vyapti. Swarupa means her own personal self isn't everywhere with Lord Sriman Narayana. But she is with Sriman Narayana by her guna vyapti, by her qualities. She's there. What are her qualities? Her qualities are also her knowledge. By her knowledge, by her understanding, she is everywhere, right? So by her consciousness, by her consciousness can be expanded, or knowledge. The word consciousness in Sanskrit, chit, is the soul itself is chit, is knowledge. So the knowledge becomes all expansive in moksha. So therefore, for instance, we have deities. We have a deity of a devotee. We have a deity of an acharya, right? Like Ramanuja or not Ramanuja, any acharya. We might have an acharya who's a jiva living being, right? And we make a murti of him like that. How can that acharya come, or even a devata, even something like Shiva or Ganesh? But for instance, an acharya in moksha, he's able to understand what's being offered to his deity here on the earth, right? So we have a deity of some Purvacharya like Yamunacharya, and we offer some prasadam to that, some bhoga to that deity, or some worship to that deity. That acharya can know that because he's all knowing in moksha, like that. Is that acharya personally present in his deity? No, not according to the Southern school, because he can't be all pervading. We can't be in two places at once. I can't be in Vaikuntha and be in another place at the same time. So if I'm in Vaikuntha, I'm doing Kainkarya in Vaikuntha, I cannot also be here. God can do that. He can expand, and He is everywhere. He is everywhere. But the jiva cannot do that. The jiva cannot expand himself unlimitedly and be everywhere at once like that. Otherwise, he'd be God. This is the quality. The main quality of God is vyapti. Is swarupa vyapti. He can be himself personally everywhere, within everything. Even we were discussing this in the other class, I think yesterday, about there's also a discussion between the Northern School and the Southern School about the soul, whether the soul is pervaded by God. If God is everywhere and He pervades everything, then does He also pervade the soul? Is He inside the soul? Because in the Upanishads we hear the analogy of the body's like a tree, and in the tree there's a green tree, green leaves, and there are two green birds in the tree. So when we look in the body, we know that the Paramatma and the Atma are both within the body, but we can't see them, just like two little green birds in a green tree. So this is the example given in the Upanishads. So is it like that? Is it that the Paramatma is there and the Atma is next to the Paramatma? There are two birds in the tree. Or is the Lord actually within the Atma? And then there are some other arguments also from Bhagavad Gita, because Nainan Chintandi, in the second chapter it says that the soul cannot be cut, cannot be divided. So if you can't cut it and you can't divide it, how can you pervade it from inside? But so anyway, the Southern School and Northern School have a difference on this idea of pervasion of the soul from inside or from outside, because remember, the word Vishnu means pervading from inside, and Vasudeva means pervading from outside, and the word Narayana means both. So, but this is getting back to this point, the main idea of pervasion, the main idea of God. What is the ultimate definition of God? Is that personality that pervades everything. That person who pervades everything from the inside and from the outside is God. So that is why these three names, Vishnu, Narayana, Vishnu, Vasudeva, and Narayana, are the three main names of God. And there are three main mantras, or Vyapaka mantras, which deal with them. And that's why Vyapaka is, Vyapti, or all pervasiveness, is the most important aspect of God, according to Sri Vaishnavism.
Srimate Ramanujaya Namaha, Srimad Anantarya Mahagurave Namaha, Srimad Varavaramuneye Namaha, Pillalokacharya Tiruvadigalai Sharanam. Previously in Sri Vacana Bhusanam, it was shown that the individual Jivatma, the Chetana, does not do any self-effort to protect himself, taking the Ishvara as his means, goal, and as the enjoyer. Examples of Sita, Draupadi, and Tirukkannamangayandan were used to show the qualifications of the Adhikari, for whom only he is the means. And the examples of Lakshmana, Jatayu, Pillai Tirunarayurayar, and a Gopika called Chintayanti were used to show the qualifications of the Adhikari before gaining the goal, which is selfless service. Through these examples, it was shown that we have to give up our strength, our modesty, in any and all acts of protecting ourselves, and that we have to do selfless complete service out of pure love, to the extent of even disregarding our bodies with him as the goal. When it came to disregarding the body, questions were raised that has been shown as a means in the Shastras, And yet here we are saying that Jatayu, Pillai Narayur and Chintayanti did that. And it was shown that they did that out of pure love, and therefore it could not be given up. Then the question was asked, how the same thing, when coming to the Shastras, was disregarded, but could not be let go when it came through desire. And it was shown that that act will be thought of as the object of pursuit itself, the Purushartha itself. The question next raised is, if someone does not think of it as a means, will it still happen that they will sacrifice or disregard their body just out of sheer desire? And that is answered in the next sutram, sutram number 88. அப்பிராப்த விஷயங்களிலே சக்தனானவன் அது லவிக்க வேணும் என்றிரான் என்றால் பிராப்த விஷய பிரவணனுக்கு சொல்ல வேண்டாமே. அப்பிராப்த விஷயம், that is lowly matters. சக்தனானவன், one who has desire or immersed in it. அது லவிக்க வேணும், he wants to acquire something and he strives for it. So, if a person desires, for example, a man desiring a woman, seeking lowly bodily pleasures, we see that he will do anything to attain her, to the extent of even sacrificing his body. An example is used here of a well-known incident from Vikramaditya Charitra, in which a person fell in love with a prostitute. And he was so much in love with her that when she fell sick, and she could not be cured, he prayed to some devata that she should be cured, and if she was, he would cut his own head and sacrifice it. And she did recover, and he did what he had promised. And Pulalokacharya says, if in that aprapta vishayam, if he has that shakti, that desire to do that, then in the prapta vishayam, which is Perumal himself, for the Pravana, the Chetana who has great love for Perumal, do we have to explain that he would be willing to disregard his own body for that goal, which is Perumal himself? Prapta Vishaya Pravananukku solla vendavere. We don't even have to say that, it is automatically understood. Previously, some qualifications were mentioned as being part of seeing him as the means, and some qualifications were mentioned as being part of seeing him as the goal. But in that, this disregarding of the body, the sacrificing of the body is different, in that it is mentioned as a means in the Shastras. For a Prapanna who has taken Perumal as the means, maybe he will not be able to stop this by seeing it not as a means, but as something that comes out of love for Perumal. But even in that case, it is not true that it is still a part of a group of means. That is Upaya Kodi or Upaya Goshti. And that question is answered in Sutram number 89. Anushtanamum, Ananushtanamum, Upaya Goshtiyal, Anvahiyadi. The Sutram can be broken up as Anushtanam Upaya Goshtiyal, Anvahiyadi. Adipoda Ananushtanamum Upaya Goshtiyal, Anvahiyadi. Anushtanam is conduct or behavior. Ananushtanam is conduct or behavior that is in opposition to the Prapanna's nature. So these qualifications or the conduct for having him as the means were said to be giving up the power or strength, giving up modesty, and giving up self-effort. And the conduct for having him as the goal was shown to be great love for him, not caring for oneself, and unable to bear separation. But none of the above are considered as means. So the conduct that is opposite to a Prapanna's behavior, namely giving up the body, is also not done as a means, but comes out of great love, and it too will not be considered as a means. It will be part of the conduct for having him as the goal. Even if something is mentioned as a means in the Shastras, it becomes a means only when it is done with the thought that it is a upayam. The act that is done without the thought that it is a means, and only with the thought that it is a goal, will therefore not become a means. If the Chetana's thought process is not considered and we only look at the act itself, then even other acts of the Prapanna, such as living in a Divyadesam, will also have to be considered as a means, which they are not. So that does not apply here either. So this is not upaya anushtanam, something that is done as a means for a goal. It is upeya anushtanam, something that is done with itself being the goal. Alternately, even if we say this act of disregarding the body done by Pillai Narayorarayar is part of the many upayams, the upaya goshti, it is still not wrong. Why is that? Is this not against taking up any other means other than him? The answer is that it is not wrong for those who are completely in love with him. And that is shown through the behaviors of those who are like that in the next sutra. Sutram number 90. Ananya upayatvamum, ananya upeyatvamum, ananya daivatvamum, kolayambadiyana pravritti kana indromire. There are three things mentioned here. Ananya upayatvam, ananya upeyatvam, ananya daivatvam. Ananya upayatvam means not taking anything else as the means and considering only he is the means. Ananya upayatvam means not taking anything else as the goal, considering only he is the goal. And ananya daivatvam means not thinking of anyone else as God, thinking only of him as God. And Pullalokacharya says, we see acts, pravritti, that go against all three of these. Kanan Indromire. Who do we see this with? With Arvas. And Manavana Mamungal gives examples from the Divya Prabandham of the Arvas to show that how they broke all three. Kolayumbadi. They are destroyed. The acts that destroy Ananya Upayatvam. In the Divya Prabandham, examples are taken to show that Arvas did certain things like fasting, nonbu, forceful acts to attain something. Andal in Achar Tirumuri says, Tirundave Norkindren, Norkinda Nonbine Kurikol Kandai. Both Tamarvar and Tirumangayarvar have done what is known as Madal Eduttal or Madal Urdal, which is an act of a lover climbing a horse made of palm leaves and going around town trying to attain his love. While Arvas did not do that act physically, they mention that they have done that in their Divya Prabandham verses. Namarvar in Thiruvaimuri says, Kudiriyai Madal Urdam, that he will actually do that act. And in Siriya Thirumadal and Periya Thirumadal, Tirumangayarva says, Uraduriye nan Varar Pumbenne Madal, Ulagariya Urvan nan Manniya Pumbenne Madal. Tirumangayarva also says his name as a means when he says Odinama. Next, the acts that destroy Ananya Upayatvam, instead of doing acts that add to his greatness and that being the Purushartham, Arvas start looking for things that are good for themselves. Tirumangayarva says, Namakke Nalamadalin. Namarva says, Tumadal Tannandurai Malargundu Suduvom. So these are things that they are doing to themselves for their own benefit, instead of everything being for his benefit. The acts that destroy Ananya Daivatvam, starting to pray to other Devatas like Kamadeva. Andal in Nachya Tirumuri says, Anangareva Unnayum Umbiyayum Turude. Later she also says, Pesuvadu Ondundu Inge Emberaman. So due to the great love for Perumal, we see Arvas doing such acts. And Pullalokacharya says, Kana Indro, that we are seeing them. Now, it is not just that these acts are a means by their nature, Arvas actually doing them as a means. But for such prema paravasars, those who are subjugated to that deep love, these acts are not a mistake. And that is what is said in the sutra. Is it okay just because Arvas did them? It's still a mistake, right? A mistake is a mistake. Is that not correct? And if we say they happened because Arvas did them in a state of intoxication, then the question is, such acts that come out of their knowledge not being under their control, them having a mental imbalance, should not be supported, right? And those questions are answered in the next sutram, sutram number 91. Jnana vipaga karyamana ajnanattale varumavai yallam adikkalanji verum. Jnana vipakam is bhakti. Knowledge that has matured is bhakti. This is what is said in Ramanuja as Jnanam Kaninda Nalam. Karyamana, acts that are done due to that bhakti, அஜ்ஞானத்தாலே வருமவை எல்லாம். All those acts born out of that mental imbalance, அடிக்கழிஞ்சு வரும். These acts are praiseworthy. They should not be derided, they should be praised. It's because of that bhakti, all acts that follow don't come by verifying, using their knowledge to check if they are right or wrong. They may be imprudent acts, but they are praiseworthy. If the ignorance or the imbalance comes out of karmas, then the acts that follow that are of lowly nature and should be scorned or disparaged. But those that come out of bhakti should be praised. Here the word Adi Karanji is used. Adi is a certain size of land. Karanji is some gold found in it. So it is like the gold raising the value of that land. Nevertheless, this act is contrary to his nature of being Siddhopayam, of being both the means and the goal together. And that nature will not tolerate any act of the Chetana. So will this not offend him as a Siddhopaya or be obstacles to his acts done as Siddhopaya? That is answered in the next sutram, sutram number 92. Upaya palamai, upeya antarbhutamai irukkum adu, upaya pratibandhagam agadu. Upayam is he who is the means. Upaya palamai is the fruit of his efforts. Upeya antarbhutamai means within the goal which is also him. Irukkumadu, all this which is inside that. Upaya pratibandhagam agadu. They will not be obstacles to the acts of him who is the Siddhopayam. So the answer is no. These acts will not be obstacles to his acts as the Siddhopayam. So Upaya Palam means the fruit of his efforts as a Siddhopaya. Why is this act of the Chetana the result of his efforts, his Krishi Palam? Because he is the one who grew the bhakti that caused this act within the Arvas. Mayavara Madinam Marudinan. Peramar Kadal Kadal Puraya Velayvitta Karamar Meni Nam Kandan says Namalvar. So it is him who gave that bhakti and who also gave this bhakti paravasam. And that bhakti paravasam led to these acts. Upeya antarbhutama irukkumadu, the desire to get the goal which is him very quickly. That's what is causing all these struggles and sufferings within the Arvas. But these struggles and sufferings are still for his pleasure only, for his face to shine with happiness. So just like the service is done for his joy, these two are done for his joy, and so they are within that upayam or goal. Therefore, they cannot be obstacles to his acts done as Siddhopayam. Alvar Embiravanar Jiya Thiruvilasharanam Adiye Mudra Kavidas.
And basically what we're talking about, we're starting to talk about from 84, Sutra 84, we're talking about selfless service, different forms of selfless service and giving up the body, etc. And then in the last sutras, we're talking about how selfless service, sometimes we see that there'll be acts which are against the regulations of the scriptures. Amongst people who are, mature devotees or Vaishnavas or Prapanas, surrendered people. What was the last, what does it say? Acts performed in apparent blissful ignorance arising from the maturation of wisdom should be cherished.
Yeah, acts done from bhakti. Yeah, they are when they are done with pure love, then it's okay. Yeah? Even though it's against the scriptures or so. Huh?
Yeah, either doing something or not doing something which is forbidden, or not doing something which is prescribed to be done.